Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Resilience Show, and I am here in Las Vegas, Nevada, SHOT Show, and we're in a Smith & Wesson booth. Smith & Wesson built us a makeshift studio. It's pretty cool. We have some Smith & Wesson logos behind us and lots of guns. Smith & Wesson's one of the sponsors for the show, as well as Vortex and Gators Eyewear, which is here. They're all here being represented at SHOT Show, and one of the companies that isn't here. You don't have a booth here, do you?
We don't, no.
They have a booth here, but I think it should be represented the type of people that are here. Is Uncharted Supply Company, and on the show today we have Christian Schauf. Did I say it right?
You got it right, man.
I got it right. Okay, I was practicing before and asking. Christian Schauf. So Christian's the founder of Uncharted Supply Company, and those who have followed me know that preparedness is something that is very, very important to me, for myself personally, for my family, for those who I care about in the audience listening. I care about you. And so I believe resiliency is readiness, and readiness means you have to be prepared. And if you're prepared, you're resilient. And you can't be prepared if you don't have the right gear. And gear is so important. Gear that has good shelf life, that has good adaptability, gear that you could actually, that you know how to use. And so as I looked around, Christian and Uncharted has put out some amazing gear, kind of ready for the user, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. So Christian, welcome.
Dude, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's awesome to meet you, and this is cool. Really cool.
Where are you at? You're located in?
I'm in Park City, Utah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm up in the mountains. I've got 10 acres up there, and me and my dog hold it down up there. So,
well, it's being a survival guy and have a survival company. That's a good place to be. It'd be weird if you're like from downtown LA. No. Running.
Well, actually, I originally, I'm from Wisconsin, but the idea came when I took a job in Newport Beach, California. So that was actually when I felt the most at risk, being around all those people and having an ocean on one side. I feel pretty comfortable up on the mountains, but the mountains provide a lot of ability to test our products, right? You got weather and elevation and just there's a lot of hard things that come with the mountains that help us make good stuff.
Yeah. Wow. I definitely want to spend a lot of time today talking about Uncharted Supply Company, not as an infomercial, but as a resource. Like, you guys are a base of information and wealth knowledge to be able to help the audience be prepared. And then of course, with Uncharted, one about to point people to where to get supplies and where to get training and know how to use it. But before we do, I want to talk about your background a little bit. I think before you're in the survival space, you're in a rock band.
Yeah, I've been all over the place, man. So a little bit before that, I grew up on a dairy farm in northern Wisconsin.
That's even further. That's even further down the rabbit hole. I had a rock band, a dairy farm. That's like, Go ahead.
What's really interesting is everything I've done in life has dovetailed into Uncharted in a really unique way, whether it's the experiences or learning how to build a business or everything else. But yeah, grew up on a dairy farm, northern Wisconsin, Barron, Wisconsin, and I just say this, like, my parents were really good marketers. We had a really interesting farm, did crops, dairy cows, a couple other things. But the thing I remember most is how it was such a community, right? Like, we get tornadoes up there. There was tornadoes. Like, my parents were the first to throw chainsaws in the back of the truck and go and help clean up, right? We looked out for each other. After college, I did a bunch of different things. And eventually, I played in a band for a while. I moved to Newport Beach, California, and it was like the opposite, right? Where there wasn't really community. You didn't know your neighbors. People were every man for themselves. And that's really what led me to building this company, because it was such a difference from everything I was used to. I've been overseas as a contractor a lot and done some things like that. And just being around capable people that were team-oriented, that were community-oriented, and then suddenly find myself in a place where if it rained, everybody locked their doors. It just didn't sit well with me, and that's why we did this.
Before we jump into that, when you were in the rock band, you were doing AFE tours for the Armed Forces Entertainment tours, right?
So I mean, we were in a band for like a decade, played all over. We were based out of Minneapolis, so we shared a practice space with Soul Asylum, if people remember that band.
Oh,
and my drummer and keyboard player, amazing guys that took us under their wing, but they were in Prince's New Power Generation band, and so we wrote songs with Phil Solem, who's most famous for "I'll Be There For You," the Friends theme. I was around some really, really cool musicians, and we had a really fun time with it. We did 3 albums, played all over. I think we ended up playing in 30 some countries when it was all said and done. But honestly, like, I'm an outdoors guy. I like early mornings, and this like driving all day to play a show and then being up late in bars was just not sitting well with me. And I the hard thing about the music industry is, like, I always tell people, if you're like a sprinter and you go to the time you have to get paid. And music was so arbitrary. You'd think you were close one day, and then the next day some other guy would make a new sound, and that was the new thing. And it was a hard thing for me to like find purpose and to like be really goal oriented. And I was about to get out of it, and we were in South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, and we were playing some showcases there, and two dudes came up from the Pentagon. They said, "Hey, we liked your show. You ever thought about playing overseas?" And I was like, "Man, that sounds fun. Let's go." So we did a tour with Armed Forces Entertainment. And then it turns out the guy that came with us on the tours, Colonel Scott Rainey, was in charge of all the programs. And he's like, "Man, this is one of the best tours we've ever had. Can you come back?" So we came back. We got to know the guys. Long story short, it turned into 39 trips for me overseas. My band did 150 shows. We were named Armed Forces Entertainers of the Year by the Pentagon. And then we sent a lot of other groups over. We did a thing called Bikes Over Baghdad. We built skate parks at bases, and I'd take BMX guys.
Yeah.
We took the Pussycat Dolls over, the Spin Doctors. So it was not only my band, but it was taking other groups, and then my job was to make sure that they were safe and they were prepared, and I was guiding them around and things were taken care of. Just a crazy experience, man. It was really an amazing time of life where, once or twice a month we would go to Iraq for 2 or 3 weeks and do a bunch of shows and fly around in Blackhawks and Chinooks and Ospreys and try to make people smile. It was cool.
That's really awesome. I know just from being overseas, how you're away from home, and these young guys, especially the young kids that are young men serving in Afghanistan and in Iraq, like they're away from home for the first time.
Yep.
And just to bring somebody to come there and perform for them is just.
The thing we were always looking for is like we would hear this, and that's when we knew we did a good job, was when people would say, "I forgot I was in Iraq for a couple hours." Like it felt like that was the goal, right? That's awesome. To make them forget that they were there. But I'll tell you a funny story. The first time we went over, I'll never forget. We got to this base. It was called Camp Korean Village. It was on the Syrian border. We float in Ospreys. And it was our first show outside of Kuwait. And Kuwait felt more like a D3 college, right? Yeah. You go to Arif John and stuff, and there's pools, and there's a Baskin Robbins. And this was different. And I remember sitting there looking around the DFAC, and it was all guys, and everybody's sober. And I just realized 5 guys that showed up to sing for a couple hundred guys. And I'm like, what are we doing here, man? This is going to be awkward, right? Yeah. There's no girls, there's no drinks. And we just let the troops come up and play the songs that they could play. Like if they could play guitar, get up here. We got a bunch of non-alcoholic beers and had a big beer fight. And we just tried to make it fun. And I think the idea was just to really like get their mind off it and let them have the fun they wanted to have, right? It was definitely not about us, but an amazing section of life that I'm really thankful for, but taught me a lot.
So you're in Newport and you decide to start this survival company. Well, what's the transition from being in a rock band, traveling around the world playing for the troops, and then starting a company?
Yes, there was a lot of it. I started a hard apple cider company. We sold to Miller. I helped start it with the guy Joe Heron. It was called Crispin. We sold that. I was in Minneapolis playing in the band, and what happened was while we were doing these tours, we started getting all these brands that wanted to be involved. And so we'd Harley Davidson and GoPro, and we'd be able to give motorcycles away and give GoPros away. And then when I came home, they were like, "Hey, we want you to do more stuff stateside." And that led me to Southern California, where there was a bunch of brands that I'd been working with. And so I ended up taking a full-time job there and just moving from Minneapolis to Newport Beach. And, it was a combination of things. One, my mom is a worrier. And she's like, "What about earthquakes? What about earthquakes? Do you have an earthquake kit? Are you ready for this?" Yeah. But also going from, like I said earlier, this mindset of like team and community, and everybody like had a purpose and was capable. And you got to Newport Beach, and I can't tell you how many times I'd be out on a road bike ride, and there'd just be a person sitting there with a flat tire that didn't know how to change it, and they didn't have cell service. They're just helpless. They're waiting for somebody to come save them. And it really like stuck with me that, wow, it's not that people are dumb. It's just that they didn't get the reps that I did growing up on a farm.
Life has become so convenient.
Yes.
I'd say a lot of people don't even realize right now that many new cars you buy, new luxury cars you buy, does not even come with a spare tire. They don't know that a car doesn't have a spare tire until they get a flat.
Right, and you can't really fix them either. I mean, there's so much technology built into things. Even if you can change a tire, there's very few people that have done it. Yeah. So there were just all these little things, right? We're living in this place that now, in hindsight, looking at the statistics as I moved out there and I was trying to figure out what I really want to do with my life, California felt Like it was just perfectly balancing, and any little thing could just send everything into chaos. And that's really the feeling that I had. And so I started talking to people, and I'm like, what do you do? What do you have? And almost every person said, I definitely need to get like a kit, but I don't know where to go. I don't know what to get. And so that was really, I was like, man, there's an opportunity here, because at the time I was working for a company. I didn't really like it. And I just decided my next move, I wanted that to be my move. Like I wanted to build a business. I love the outdoors, but I wanted to leave a legacy, and I wanted to do something to make the world a better place when it was all said and done.
Yeah.
And it was like, I had these like specific things that I wanted to check the box on when I started a company. And that's ultimately what led me to start this.
Yeah.
So
can you give an overview? Cause I want to go into some areas that people could be prepared on. Can you give an overview of everything that Uncharted Supply Company does?
Sure. So we started with a 72-hour kit because I was in California thinking about earthquakes.
Right.
I would say now, if I was going to look at the business, I would put it into two buckets. I would call it emergency preparedness, earthquakes, fires, and I would call it prepared adventure.
Okay.
If you're hunting, if you're mountain biking, if you're going on a overlanding trip.
Yeah.
You're
You're going outside of the normal everyday life and putting yourself in a potentially risky environment.
Yeah, I think it comes down to being able to self-rescue, right?
Yeah.
So for me, camping and survival are almost the same thing. It's just that one you choose to do and one happens to you, right? Like, oh man, we got to run. Now we're camping for a couple of days in one way or another, or I'm going to go camping this weekend. So, all of our stuff kind of fits into those categories. We build first aid kits, survival kits, go bags kind of things. We build pack rafts, duffel bags, but everything we build is designed to help you navigate maybe an unexpected, uncharted situation. So we probably have 30 or 40 main products, all different sizes and shapes. When I think about preparedness, I think about concentric circles, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm going to go for a 10-mile run in the mountains, I don't want to carry 10 pounds, right? You want to be unencumbered, but having nothing is also not the answer. So we have like a 130-gram little kit that can fit into your pocket really small. Then in my truck, I've got a 15-pound kit, our 72 Pro, that has more. And then at home, I have more. So my idea always is like, have the kit that you're going to keep with you that can get you to the next step.
Yeah.
Whether it's yourself or it's 911 or whatever, right? So that's how we think about it, and that's what we build. And I'm really proud of what we built, and we're getting better every day.
I really love this because this is, as I was telling you, I worked, different parts of the world, and I had a very unique job in the military. I worked in what we call a singleton capacity, meaning I not only by myself, but I don't have the ability to pick up a radio and call a team, get a
Right.
QRF or evac or something like that, or call for medical care. So always being in these environments, when you find yourself in the middle of like the Hindu Kush mountains, and you look around, and it took you days to get there, and you're like, if something happens, if I
Yes.
slip off the side of this mountain, nobody's coming to get me. If I springing my ankle could be life threatening.
Yes.
Am I prepared for self care?
Yep.
And so I did the same thing, not knowing this. Of course, there's some training, but not knowing what we do today. I mean, this was 2000. I was operating from 2003 to 2007. I operated this way, but now we know so much more. But I had whatever I had in my person. Whatever I had in my person had to be able to get me to where.
Yep.
Could I get to my vehicle? Could I get to that go bag? And then my backpack. It was all staged that way.
Yes.
To where I was ever base camp. And each one was set up to get me to the next place.
I mean, I've never been in the Hindu Kush Mountains. I'm jealous of that. It's badass.
Yeah,
but
it's pretty beautiful.
I've done unsupported grizzly hunts in the Brooks
Yeah.
Range, in the Arctic Circle, and it's the same thing. It's like, it really makes every step a little more thoughtful.
Yeah.
You're almost overly cautious because you roll an ankle, you break a leg. Makes things a lot harder getting out of there. So, I'm with you, man.
So there's those kind of scenarios, but then there's the scenarios of just someone that lives at home. I mean, look, we just did the LA fires, and as you watch people leave, those people that were evacuating, I'm certain 99% of them never thought in a million years that they would be in that situation, fleeing their homes, getting in a vehicle, getting stuck in traffic, and having to exit the vehicle with nothing in their hands. No water, no medical equipment,
Right.
no cash to get a hotel or food or meal. They were going to have to depend on someone else because they did not prepare.
Right. I watch these videos of people running from their cars, right? And I never want to be somebody that's like looking like they're taking advantage of a situation, but this is the time when people actually pay attention because it's real and it's happening. But it's why we built a backpack. And it's why we didn't make it 50 pounds, we made it 15 pounds. And it's why we put the things in it that we did. Because if you look at those people as an example, we had a water filter. They were telling people don't drink the water. It had an air mask, it has goggles, it has gloves. Like you see people pulling their shirts over their nose and running. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't take a bunker. It just takes like a backpack of the right stuff to change a potentially super hazardous situation into something that you can actually manage.
Now, yeah, your 15-pound backpack. To me, like in my scenario, if I had to flee from that, if I had your 15-pound backpack with some cash in there, I'd feel.
Well, and people don't realize, like, if you're running and sucking in a ton of smoke, like that can have long-term effects too. Like, you know, air masks are not just for COVID. Right? Like there are a lot of use cases for this. Let's say it's really cold, like having goggles and an air mask, it can warm your breath, which also helps you move faster. You can see, like, there's just, we've spent a lot of time thinking about the what ifs and tried to create something that, in my opinion, just is super effective and also super affordable. And my belief, we call it the 72 because you probably know the statistic, like 95% of survival situations are resolved in 72 hours, which means statistically, if you can hang on for 72 hours, help will arrive. For most people, 95% of the time. That means you don't need a bunker. You just need enough to get by. And I'm not saying it's going to be comfortable, but enough to survive. And that was my goal in building this. Like, how can we make something that works for the masses, not just the rich, or not just people that can carry a bunch of stuff, or not just special forces medics that know how to do special things. Like, how do I give a backpack to a mom that is over her head and she can like take care of her and her kids for a couple days? And that was really my goal.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at your price points, and this stuff isn't cheap, but it's good, and it needs to be sustainable. It needs to last, right? It can't be perishable product. Right. But it's a very small investment considering the insurance factor that it gives for your not only human life, but the life of yourself and your family members, people you care about.
I always say it's expensive when you buy it, but it's priceless if you use it, if you have it when you need it.
Right.
And that's
100%.
I think one of the disservices we've done as a society is we've made first aid and this stuff, we made it a commodity, right? Like you can buy a $19 Band-Aid kit at Walmart that's got 50 Band-Aids in it, but 50 Band-Aids never saved a life.
No.
And so the thing like our company struggles against, people go, man, that's really expensive. I don't want to spend that right now. But it is cheap insurance, man.
It's cheap insurance. Yeah, like I said, things like Band-Aids and stuff like that, there's nothing you can put a Band-Aid on that you actually need it for survival.
Right.
That's what scabs are for.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, but a tourniquet and gauze.
Yep.
Those.
Water filter.
Yeah,
air mask. All those things can really make a difference.
Yeah.
When the need arises.
I mean, look, I was just in D.C. for the inauguration, and I had a little sling bag.
Yeah.
And it had, I wish I could tell you that in the audience that I had an Uncharted kit, but I didn't. But I had some medical kits stuffed in there, and I had about 12 tourniquets with me.
You did?
I had about 12 tourniquets with me. And I mean, I usually very rarely don't have a tourniquet on me.
Were you concerned about something happening?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
I think a lot of us had like the invites to go to things.
Yeah. And I was in kind of some of the close inner circle DC events with people that would be targeted if something were to happen, and obviously I'm very connected with some inside information, so I knew potentially there was some very credible threats that were out, and a lot of the movements wasn't just because of the weather.
I'm sure.
And so I wanted to make sure that if anything happened, that myself and the people I had around me that I care about, and people that wasn't prepared to help themselves, that I'd be able to help them. And one of the things I thought I could most valuable to have on me were tourniquets.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, I wish more people had your mindset of like, how can I not only take care of myself, but others? Because I really think what we saw like in these LA fires is you can't depend on emergency response to take care of everybody. They're going to do their best, but it's probably like 1% in a situation like that. But if we all had that mindset like you do of like, how do I become a helper in this situation? The world changes, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a really powerful thing that I'm like so thankful for guys like you, because we need more of that. We need people that are like, not just like, oh, I'm fine, but like, how do you take care of that old lady next to you or those kids or whoever?
Well, we're right here in Vegas right now, and at the Vegas shooting here.
Yeah.
And one of the Marines who served with my son in Afghanistan, they went to Afghanistan together. He was at the concert. And when the gunshots started and everybody started running, he started helping people. And he used his belt first for a tourniquet, and then he used his t-shirt, And then started pulling belts off of bodies and putting tourniquets on people.
Unreal.
I mentioned him because I was just thinking how proud I was of him. And
that's amazing.
Crazy enough, and it almost seems conspiratorial that he was 1 year later to the day, he was in the Thousand Oaks bar shooting and did the exact same thing.
I think God's put him in those places to help, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is incredible.
Yeah, they actually looked into it. The FBI was like, why were you in both of these shootings a year apart, mass shootings? But yeah, he was, he helped himself, but he didn't have this medical stuff he had on him, but he found stuff. And, unfortunately, there were bodies laying around and belts and,
belts.
Yeah. And,
Unbelievable.
People bringing them out. And
well, I always tell people too, it's like, people ask, well, where should I keep stuff? And I always say your car.
Yeah.
Because wherever you are, usually your car's in proximity. If you're at the gym, if you're at the grocery store, if you're at work, your home, people buy so much stuff and fill their homes up, which is great in a situation like COVID, maybe where you're staying home for 3 weeks. But if you're 20 miles from home and something happens, you have nothing if it's all home. So that's an interesting aspect too, I think.
Yeah. Typically, if I don't have my sling bag, which I have a tourniquet in, I don't know who makes it. It's just a elastic cord. It's almost like a cord, and at the end it has like a butterfly looking metal buckle on it, and I wear it as a belt.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And it is a tourniquet.
The rats one? Is that what it is?
That's it.
Yeah.
I wear it as a belt.
Yep. I've seen that one. Yep. That's cool.
Yeah. When I was in Ukraine, I wore 2 of them.
We've actually been working on some clothing where it's like, the drawstring and the hoodie could work as a tourniquet, and the ink is like strikeable with a match. Like that's something I think about a lot, is how do you bring stuff that you could use in an emergency into your daily life? Because as we've seen, things pop off pretty quick, and reacting fast is such an important thing.
This word prepping,
yeah,
it's in some circles or some people, it's a bad word. Like it sounds like a conspiracy, crazy person word. So
if I put my marketing hat on, for 8 years of running this company, we've tried to figure out a different word instead of prepper.
Yeah.
Because prepper feels like the super conspiracy theorist that is in his bunker and thinks everybody's out to get him. And I have yet to find a better word, because everybody knows that word, but I'm with you, man. It's like,
I say it as my she lives in Minnesota, and I bought her some stuff and told her about, and she rolled her eyes. I'll tell you what I bought her. I bought her a Randy McMillan map with the spiral on the side. Because I told her, when the grid goes down, you're not gonna be able to use your GPS. You're gonna need an MAP, like a map, and I took, highlighted how to get to certain places, go around cities and stuff like that, and it's an eye-rolling moment for her. But I'm like, okay, you can roll your eyes, but when power goes down, the grid goes down, and it's about to move, you can be happy you have this map. And I have one in every car for my family, and every year they come out with new ones still. People forget they have them. You go to any like Buc-ee's or a truck stop, and just buy one. They're like, what, $20?
Yeah, throw it in your dash and keep it there. Your glove box. Yeah. The other thing I think about with that is, I remember when Russia invaded Ukraine, they were changing the street signs, right? They would point them in different directions.
Yeah.
So you can't even trust that.
Yeah.
So
I kind of wrote about it in one of my books. The Ukrainians were doing it intentionally to send them to ambush.
Right.
They were channeling the ambush points. They were like, don't follow the street signs. They're telling me that.
Gosh. Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes we depend on technology so much, and technology is amazing.
Yeah.
But having those real, and I don't like to say like bushcraft, that's a little too far. I think you don't need to like use a bow and a string to start a fire. You need a Bic lighter, you don't have to go that far, but being able to do those things and be able to navigate is so important. And that's one of the things, like at our company, we have a blog, it's called The 4 Pillars. So it was something I developed with my friend Travis Haley, who's also a Force Recon Marine. And we tried to distill down survival into like buckets. And what we came up with was resources, resourcefulness, community, and mental and physical fitness. And so every couple of weeks we put out an email with a topic on each one. And survival it can be anything, right? It could be a garden, it could be changing a tire, it could be fixing a gunshot wound. It's such an important thing to always be building skills. And it's not just about trusting technology, but it's knowing how to do whatever you need to do in the moment.
Yeah. So you have these products, right? And so a lot of people would get products and they're like, what do I do with this? Does any of your products have tutorials?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I started building our first product, what I tried to do is, instead of just put a backpack of stuff together, I tried to reverse engineer an emergency and put a normal person in there. What's going to happen? And the reality is, for most people, and we called it Uncharted because it's the unknown. You're going into you haven't done this before. Not uncharted as if you're rudderless and you have no navigation, but uncharted is like, okay, I'm going into something I've never done before. How do you help somebody in that situation? And what it really came down to me was three things. It was high quality gear, but it was also organization, and it was instruction. So with all of our products, when you open them up, there's instructions that's color coordinated with the pocket. So like the first aid pocket is red. And then on the back is screen printed instructions in a red square. So if your brain is going crazy on you because adrenaline's spiking and maybe your kid's got a broken arm, or you're hanging upside down in a car, you can go, okay, red. Okay, it helps you eliminate other things and not dig through a whole pack of stuff, but get right to that 20% of the kit that you need and then go through the steps. And it also, what that does, in my opinion, is, okay, step 1, I did that. Step 2, I did that. What starts to calm your adrenaline down and help you think more clearly because you know you're doing things right and you're starting to move towards a goal. So for us, it was never about guys like you, because I trust the guys like you have thought about this, but it was for, like I said, the mom that's never been in this situation, that's not had training. How could I create something that I could just give them and it would make a difference? So we've tried to simplify it. We've tried to be like a trusted voice over the shoulder of like, okay, here's how you set a broken bone. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And then they go, okay, cool. Now there's help on the way. I've done all the right things. To me, that was always the goal here. So yeah, instruction, training is the utmost importance.
Yeah.
I just unfortunately don't believe everybody's going to take a ton of training. I don't think our world is going to do that. So how do you circumvent, or not circumvent, but how do you provide direction to the inexperienced? And that's always been our goal. Is everything we do. We have a 4-person trauma kit we're coming out with. And when you open it up, there's diagrams of a body, and it's colored where the injury is, right? Whether it's a chest wound or an arm, and then it points by color to the tools in that kit you should use, right? A tourniquet is no good if it's a chest wound, right? So what we try to do is, like, imagine a teacher, Q3, something happens, they had a training one day at the beginning of school.
Right.
They're not going to remember that,
no,
especially not now. But if they can open this and go, oh, okay, it's here. Okay, do this.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the best approach we can do. And that's what we try to do with everything.
Yeah. it's really tough to be able to stay consistently trained in that, even if it's your job. Like in some special operations teams I was with, we go through this. We have one, obviously, medic, like 18 Delta trained medic in our team, Special Forces trained medic in our team. And then everybody else gets like these combat lifesaver, like kind of first line trauma care. So everyone gets that. We get that once a year. It's like a 3-day block.
Yeah.
Triple C, tactical combat care, casualty care, once a year. And even with that, I feel like I'd have to be really refreshed to be able to do some of the things that they train us to do. Yeah. So, and no one's doing that, right? No regular person's doing that.
No regular person's doing that. The analogy I always use is it's like making the Super Bowl the first game of the season. It's like going into the most important thing you'll ever do with no reps. Yeah. Like, you don't want to be that person, right? Yeah. Like, so training and reps,
clear instructions.
Yeah, is great. But if you don't have that, how do you help? And that's what we try to do with all of our stuff.
So I think we might already kind of answer this, but just to make it more direct, why do you think it's imperative that people be prepared? Like, what's at stake? Why is it imperative that everyday people be prepared?
I've said this a lot of times lately. I think that COVID was like chapter 1 in a new book we're all reading. Yeah. I don't think that was like this one anomaly of craziness in the world. I think the world is getting more volatile every day for a lot of different reasons. If you look at just statistically what's happening, if you go look up a graph of like natural disasters over 50 years and everything else, these things are going to happen more frequently and in more places to more people. I also think what we're dealing with is high concentrations of people in small areas. Like, Los Angeles is a higher population than like a bunch of states in total, right? And there's just no way that you can just trust that the government's going to solve everything, or emergency response teams are going to show up in the time you need. So for me, it's, and I think what this comes from being a farm kid and like being out in the fields and something happens and you got to fix it quick. Like when I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones. I couldn't call dad, right? It was like 5 miles away. I'd have to run to him, right? And it's hunting in the backcountry for 2 weeks and having to navigate something that happened. And I think once people come face to face with an experience like that, they go, oh, I need this right now.
Right.
Comfort kills, and our culture is very comfortable, and most people have not come in contact with those experiences, so they don't feel that need at a level that I think they should.
Yeah.
But they should listen to guys like you who have been there and how these things can happen. And it's so important to be prepared when they do. So, that's been my mission all along. Like I said at the beginning, I would love to build a big company and make a bunch of money. That'd be great. But I don't feel like that would be a life well lived. Like what I would like to do is leave the world better than I found it.
Right.
And so for me, this is my way of doing that. I got an email yesterday, my customer service rep sent it over to me, of a father who bought a survival kit of ours for his daughter who was in college somewhere in the Virginias when the hurricane came.
Yeah.
And she laughed at that thing, and then she grabbed it, and that water filter provided water to her half of her dorm room, and the crank radio kept them abreast of what was going on and charged their phones, and the flashlight did X, Y. He went through this whole list of like all these things. Man, that made me feel good, right?
Yeah.
Like that's cool.
That's really,
and like
if
we could do that at scale, that's a good run here, I think. So that's what we're trying to do,
Yeah, that's why I want to have you on, because I think the more people that are informed of not just the why it's important, but where do you, you figure out why it's important, why I need this, but where do you get it? And where do you get the right stuff?
Yeah.
How do you use it? And so, like I said, being informed, that's one of the reasons I did this show.
Yeah.
Was I wanted to inform people on things that I knew and bring on guests like you to be able to educate people, because this, I know from my life experience, this episode, someone hearing it will end up preparing themselves and a life will be saved just from doing this show.
And to that point, on our website, one of our blogs is how to build your own. Like, we sell this stuff. I actually think ours is an incredible value and to piece it together, but a lot of people are like, that's expensive. Like,
and it's very convenient to just go to your site and buy it.
It'll show up in 2 days.
Yeah.
But the recipe's all there too. If you want to do it yourself, go to our website, unchartedsupplyco.com. You can go to our how to build a bug out bag, and all the instructions are there. You can go build your own. Like, we're not trying to gatekeep anything. We're mission based here. And I think that's really important.
That's good. That's why when the fires came out, I had, just from doing research on you, I had no problem promoting your company in the middle of a catastrophe, because I knew it wasn't about profiteering. It was about helping people.
Yeah.
Made it easy to do that.
No, for sure. I mean, look, we're all trying to run a business. I'm trying to create jobs for people and live a cool life. And I want to go on some cool outcomes. And those are expensive. So like, it'd be fun to make some money. But
there's nothing wrong with making money. But
there's a lot of ways I could have made a lot more money by now. Starting a business is hard. And I wake up every day feeling very motivated to keep building this business because of guys like you and this kind of feedback and what we're hopefully doing out there.
Hey guys, 10 years ago, I had found myself in a position to where investing in Mighty Oaks and all the different things I'm involved in, I had found myself not prepared for retirement. And I went to my friend Ryan Wheelis at Allied Wealth. He had been a longtime supporter of Mighty Oaks Foundation. From the beginning, he's one of our first donors to Mighty Oaks, has been a friend for a long time, and I really trusted him. And he has helped me build my retirement and invest in my future through his company, Allied Wealth. He's one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to wealth management, and has taken money that I had stuck away in 401ks that was not really producing and made it produced tenfold. And I'm so happy with the results for me that I asked him to partner with this show, and he is a partner of this show now. And we want to not only let you guys know about Allied Wealth, but we're going to be doing some special episodes on wealth management with Ryan helping co-host them. I say co-host. I'm going to be asking him questions and we're going to be providing you information on how to best manage your wealth. So if you're like me and you need someone to help you with your retirement, with your investments, with just your overall wealth management, go to alliedwealth.com and meet Ryan and his team to get you set up. Well, I never did an interview this style before, but I was thinking about this. I think it'd be fun to do it, and hopefully I don't put you on a spot with any of them. But I want to go through a couple of scenarios that some of our listeners can find themselves in, and then you can answer like what they could do to prepare for this type of scenario, and maybe with some gear that you have that they could have to prepare.
Let's do it, and then you tell me where you disagree.
Okay.
Because I'd love to hear your opinion too.
Grid down. Power goes out.
Power goes out.
We don't know when it's coming back on. What would I want to have in my house? Wintertime in Park City, Utah.
Yep.
Grid goes down.
Yep. So what I have is I have a couple generators.
Okay.
I have a gas generator and I have a solar generator that I keep plugged in. So that thing is always at 100%. So if the power goes out, I'm at 100% already. It's not sitting there unplugged and I have to charge it. I've got some solar panels that haven't even been open yet that are pristine and ready to go. So I think one of the big things is power, right? Like being able, and the interesting thing about this is you said winter, but there's a book called 1 Second After. I don't know if you ever read that.
I haven't.
It's an EMP attack, grid goes down. And one of the interesting things in that book is the main character's daughter needs insulin. And insulin needs to be kept cold. So do you have a way to keep things cold, right? Do you have a way to keep, I have 3 elk in my freezer right now. First thing I would do is make sure that freezer stays cold because that's a lot of food for a long time. That can feed a lot of people, right? So I do think that power is important, whether it's gas or propane or electricity or whatever. You need a way to kind of keep refreshing that, and you need to ration it and be careful. That's one. I've got flashlights around the house that all have these like solar panels on the side that just sit in the window. So I know they're always ready to go. If the power goes out at night, you got to see. I think light provides a lot of safety and security for people, and it kind of makes things nicer immediately. So that takes care of food. That takes care of light. I mean, heat is another thing. Depends on your house, right? Like, do you have like a space heater that you can power off the electric generator? I have a wood burning fireplace. Now, maybe people don't have that, but like I bought that house because of that.
Yes.
So I think about these things, right? I have a huge stack of wood that I've been collecting all summer, and I'd be fine that way. But again, there's just a lot. There's a lot to that question, right? Because we depend so much on plugging things in.
Yeah. That's why a conversation like this is great, though, because now you know, like, hey, these are things that that you should be thinking through. If I live in Park City, Utah.
Yep.
And I mean, maybe not last episode, but as we're recording right now, the last episode that went on the Resilience Show was Tommy Waller, the CEO of the Center for Security Policy, and we talked about a grid down scenario. Not to terrify anyone, but it's a very highly likely scenario that could happen in the United States.
Yes, there's a lot of people that will die if that.
90% in the first year. If it was down for a year in America, the 3 of 3 rules, like you can't go 3 minutes without air, you can't go 3 days without water, you can't go 30 days without food.
Yep.
In that 3-3-3, all your emergency services are going to shift really quickly to self-preservation of themselves and their family. So your emergency services go away, which means security with the police, which means fire and medical. And there's a point in that 30-day window that you're going to have to, no one's coming to help you. You're going to have to sustain.
You can see how it gets terrifying very quickly.
Very quick.
When I was in Newport Beach, I talked to a friend that had a bunch of grocery stores. And as I remembered, he told me that they basically replenish everything in the grocery store every 36 hours normally. So a grocery store in Los Angeles, everything on the shelf is new in 36 hours. That's how quickly they're turning through. An emergency hits, you're talking like a couple hours, everything's gone. So I always tell people, like, have enough food for a week or two. You don't have to have a huge bunker again. You know, I think that's like, for some, if you can, great. But if you've got enough to last for a while and get your feet under you and not have to rush into a store. We've all seen the movies where people are panicking and running around and people are getting punched and cars are crashing into each other. Like, I think the best thing you can do in a situation is actually have enough to take a step back and let things settle a little bit and get strategic. Rushing into the city to grab some supplies because you forgot to get them is probably the worst case scenario.
Yeah. And we, as people get desperate, people get violent.
Yes.
So one thing I would add to that grid down, or for me, without any scenario, would be what's behind you right there. Smith & Wesson firearms, any firearms, but particularly we're Smith & Wesson.
I've got firearms all over the place.
Yep.
I've spent a whole lifetime learning how to hunt with a bow or a gun or everything else. I mean,
harvesting food is a skill that's important in those scenarios.
Yeah, and people think guns mean like you're gonna do something bad. It can just be a conversation changer too, right?
Yeah.
You're in an argument with somebody and fighting over something, and even just being able to hold that, I think, can change a conversation, right? It can protect you.
Yeah, it is a deterrent for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, one more. Well, not one more. I got a couple more. Natural disasters and fires. We've recently seen the fires in LA, the hurricanes that hit North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, those types of things. You could see like the amount of damage and how desperate people were quickly. Yep. And unfortunately, like we said earlier, it's very unfortunate, but it's just true how ill prepared people were.
Yes. There's a couple things that come to mind. One is listening to authorities. So many times you see these hurricanes where people are like, you need to evacuate. People are like, I'm staying here. And then they become a liability because now you're sending emergency response teams in to get these people when they could be doing something better, right? So I think being a first mover is important. We've all seen pictures of the 405 in Los Angeles on Thanksgiving where it's just 8 lanes of red lights.
Yeah.
Now imagine in an earthquake. If you can move quicker, if you can grab things and move faster and get out of that epicenter, I think that that's a massive advantage. So I think that comes down to always keeping your car topped off, always having stuff in your car, because if it's like you got to go and you can just jump in your car and go and know you've got enough, look, you might lose some valuables, some personal belongings, but you might save your life.
Yeah.
So I think moving quickly and paying attention to what people are saying is the most important thing in those situations. Like, get out of the immediate threat and then figure things out, right? Your life is the most valuable thing.
One of the things that a product you have that I think in some of these natural disasters, particularly at what we've seen in North Carolina, was you guys have a quick inflate raft.
Yeah, we call it the Rapid Raft. It weighs 3.5 pounds. It holds 400.
Yeah.
And it inflates in like under 30 seconds. So it scoops air and then it has a blow valve to top it off. What it gets used mostly for, we built it for emergency stuff. What people mostly use it for now is like packing moose out of like Alaska on a river and like high alpine fly fishing, where they can go up on a river or like a lake and put the boat in. But I'm not even kidding. When Montana flooded a few years ago, I was watching CNN one night and somebody came floating out of the second story of their house in one of our rafts. And I was like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's sitting on the couch like, oh, like, holy crap, there it is. But that thing is really cool. And I've always thought, there are some people that can't swim like you, or they're injured. If you can swim and you can put somebody or 2 people or your kids in that thing and be able to walk them out or swim them out, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
It's 3.5 pounds. It's the size of a loaf of bread. Again, we try to build stuff that just isn't going to take up a big corner of your garage and you have to mortgage a house for it, right? But for a couple $100 in the corner, it's going to come in handy.
Yeah, it's a peace of mind behind it. Well, how about car crashes, being stranded? What do you guys have for that?
Car crashes or being stranded? Which one?
Well, I guess either. Yeah.
Well, being stranded, what I think a lot of, because I'm in a winter environment a lot, is your car breaks down on a highway, right? And it's snowy and that kind of a thing. I think a mistake a lot of people make is leaving their car. Your car is shelter. You probably have some gas in there so you can create heat. One of the important things is making sure you're visible to oncoming. Eventually somebody's going to come across that road, right?
Yeah.
So again, you got one of our kits in your car. You can make water. You've got enough food for a while. You've got a way to stay warm. Stay there.
Yeah.
If you don't have cell service, right? So, in a situation like that, that's what I recommend. I mean, people are always like, I need a hurricane kit, or I need an earthquake kit, or I need this kit. What I always think about is, the reality is you have to think about the human body, and the human body needs certain things to just sustain life. You have to be within a certain temperature range, right?
Right.
You can't overheat, you can't freeze. You need water. Like you said, 3 minutes without air, three days without water, that kind of a thing. So that is, if you have that, if you have shelter, if you have a way to administer first aid if you need it, you can really sustain for a long time. It's not going to be comfortable, but you can. So whether it's hot, whether it's cold, if you're broken down, most of the time what you see is, we came across their car, they went and looked for help, they were disoriented, they died in the desert, or they froze to death. Like, generally speaking, stay there.
I think you guys also have like emergency power generator for a battery, right?
Yeah, our top selling product, we call it the Zeus, because Zeus was the god of lightning, but it's a battery jump starter. It's got an air compressor on it. It's got a flashlight that can do strobe, SOS. It can be a high beam, low beam, and it charges devices. So for me, man, that checks. When we talk about what happens with automobiles, there's 3 things that happen. There's, you run out of gas, you get a flat tire, dead battery's the other one.
Dead battery. I was thinking.
Yeah, you can start your vehicle. So that's 2 out of the 3 things that make up 95% of vehicle emergencies right there in that little kit.
Yeah.
Plus you can charge your device so you can go call somebody, you can find service. You can put it out as like a traffic cone and flash so somebody doesn't hit you coming down the highway at night. In my opinion, that's something that should be in every internal combustion engine vehicle made. It should be should be the law, in my opinion, because it just
It's that valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I was driving out of my neighborhood the other day, and there was a girl standing there at her car, and I said, "You okay?" And she said, "Oh, my car won't start." There's nobody around. And I pulled it out. I said, "Pop your hood." Put it on. I said, "Start your car." Her car started. She's like, "That's incredible." I said, "You can have it." Shut the hood, drove away. And I just think, like, that's so cool, right? Like, she didn't have to call a tow truck or wait for some stranger to come and jump her car. Like, she's now got the power in her hands. So,
You know, I've just even talking about this, I felt kind of convicted because when I'm overseas, what was power? I had they called Goal Zero. Is that right?
Goal Zero's a brand, yeah.
Goal
They make,
Zero.
like, solar stuff.
They sell those a lot in Europe, and I had every vehicle.
Yep.
And I would not let a vehicle move. It's checklists, right? You had to have a Goal Zero like backup charger. And I get back here to the States, and I'm like, don't have one.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, we get comfortable, right?
Yeah, get comfortable.
I know this place. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, when most accidents happen within 5 miles of home, right? Because that's
Right.
when people have their guard down the most.
Yeah.
So I think that vigilance is really important. You know, it's part of being resilient.
Well, I'll get a Zeus for my vehicles here.
I got you, man. I'll send you one. Yeah, you'll love it. It's awesome.
So two more.
Okay.
One war and civil unrest. What do you have in the event of? And no one likes to think this way, right? But the people in Eastern Ukraine didn't think it would either. When one day they're going to pizza parlors and ice cream shops, and their kids are going to daycare. Next day they're in war, or even outside of like war, civil unrest in America is likely. We've seen it. We've seen it already. You got the city of Chaz and those kind of places. Those people didn't expect that to happen. So what do you have, or would you recommend to have in person in your home for that?
Well, it's the reason I moved from LA to a mountaintop in Park City.
Yeah.
Because space is a premium at that point, right?
Yep.
I always say you don't want to push yourself in the middle of that. So I think the first thing really is having the things you need. Like I said earlier, you don't have to rush in. Oh man, grandma doesn't have medicine. If things are going down, I got to go get it. And now you're in there and like you're in the middle of chaos and you're in traffic and some crazy guy busts your window. You know, like anything can happen. Stay away from it. That's always my first take for people is like, don't inject yourself into a problem. Like if you can stay out of the problem, that's rule number one. Now, how long it goes on, what's happening, like there's a ton of variables there, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, this is where, I mean, I don't want to too oversimplify this, but this is where a lifetime of accumulating skills comes in handy because you don't know what's going to happen. Is it winter? Is it summer? Are the roads blocked? Do you have to go off-road? Do you have to go on foot? Like, do you have to ride a bike? Are you in shape?
Yeah.
It gets
a lot of factors.
It gets pretty gnarly pretty fast, right? So that's a hard one to answer, in my opinion, just like, here's what you need. Because I get emails all the time, direct messages on Instagram. Okay, I'm actually scared now. What should I buy? If I told people to go buy our 72 and that was going to save their life, I would be a dishonest human.
Yeah.
It's part of those 4 pillars. It's like one pillar. Do you know your neighbors? Do you have a neighbor that's a doctor? Do you have a neighbor that's a plumber or an electrician? Those things can come in handy. Like, know your neighbors, be friends with them. It's going to be an asset. Stay in shape, man. Be strong. Like, be healthy. If you got to carry your kid up a mountain, but you can't get up a mountain yourself, you got a big problem.
Yeah.
But if you're training every day and it's no big deal, not only are you going to be like able to get them up there, but you can think clearly too, because you're not just totally spent doing it. So there's just a lot of things that go into this. It's the reason I wake up and work out every morning. It's the reason I think about the gear we make. It's the reason I know my neighbors. It's the reason I live where I live.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a tinfoil hat guy, but I think this is the way you have to live in this world to actually live happily.
I think one I'd add to all these, particularly the civil unrest one, is medication.
Yes.
A lot of people depend on medication, and you could get emergency scripts done, and there's companies that do it.
Yep.
I know you were talking about looking into it or partnering with someone, but there's companies that you could get an emergency stash of medication. So you get like 2 months of supply of your medication to put it in. You could just take that medication, put it in one of your Uncharted kits and bags, and it's there, and you forget about it. But when you can't go to the pharmacy anymore, or supply chains are stopped, you have that medicine that you might need to, at least even if you need it, like, okay, I only have 2 months, to wean yourself off of if you have to get to sustainable.
2 months buys you a lot of time too.
Yeah.
And by then whatever's happening is going to calm down, and you'll have more clarity around the situation no matter what it is.
Right.
100% agree. And we do sell some of that on our site. We have partners we work with. They'll call you and talk through what you need, and they'll send you a kit. That's really valuable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Huge. I think this is the most important one, at least for me, that I want to be prepared for. And so I want your answers on this. Zombie apocalypse.
Well, I've seen a lot of these movies. You need a hatchet. No.
You got the bow. You have a crossbow?
I do have a crossbow. Yeah, I have a lot of
I have
weapons.
a samurai sword. So
Yeah.
we could be a team.
Zombies that's always such a funny one. We were on Shark Tank actually.
Yeah.
And they wanted, Shark Tank, there's always like a gimmick when people come in.
Yeah.
They wanted us to have zombies. And I was like, absolutely not. I am not a gimmick company. But it's funny how many people really buy into that. There was a TV show called The Last of Us. It was based on a video game.
Yeah.
And my friends at Huckberry asked me to go through and build like what my zombie apocalypse kit would be, right? It was a rifle, it was a gun. There's my dog. Dogs can tell when things are coming. They can see and smell things. Some warm clothes, some good boots, a pocket knife.
Yeah.
Half-face blade, right? My buddy Andy.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to say I'm rooting for it, but I'm up for a good time always.
I just wonder if all this Ozempic is going to be like I Am Legend, where everybody turns into zombies and then we got to fight our way out.
Yeah, and then they're skinny, so they're fast now.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
At least if they were fat zombies, they'd be slow and you could outrun them. But now they're skinny Ozempic zombies that can move quickly.
Hopefully they're weak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people lose muscle in that.
Oh, man.
No, the real last one is travel. Like, if I'm going cross country road trip, what are the things you would have in your vehicle?
First thing I'd do is I'd never get low on gas, right?
Yeah.
Don't stop when your light's on.
Yeah.
Fill up when it's at a half a tank or quarter tank. I know that might sound a little paranoid, but most bad things happen when, oh crap, we're out of gas. Now you're making compromised decisions. You're cutting corners. You got to ask somebody for help. Maybe they're unfriendly. But before you even leave, are your tires good? I know maintaining a vehicle is more expensive all the time. Changing the oil, having good tires, having windshield washer fluid. A buddy of mine has a wiper blade company, and I was like, this is kind of preparedness because vision is important. If you can see better with these, if you get 2 more seconds down the road, that could be the difference between smashing into somebody or not, right? So again, it always goes back to being prepared and to thinking ahead, like having a solution before it happens. And I think I always tell people with my company, our biggest competitor is apathy. Our biggest competitor is people going, it's not going to happen to me. I'm not worried about it. You're right. It's not going to happen to most people, but some people it is. You don't want to be one of those some people. So road trip, gas, have a well-serviced vehicle, have the right tires. A lot of times people have these great cars and bad tires. Doesn't matter what you're driving because the only thing that's touching the road is the tires, right? It really comes down, especially in Park City where I live. Like I work with Yokohama and I've got the best tires on my stuff, right? And it makes such a difference. I had a buddy try to come up my house with the same truck that I have and he couldn't make it because he had bad tires on. My driveway is a little gnarly, but that kind of thing. And then I think having the stuff, it depends if it's summer or winter. Like in the summer, I've got a big dog. He goes with me everywhere. I've got one of those, I don't know, is it 20, 30 gallon Yeti coolers in the back of my truck. I keep it full and strapped down. I've always got a ton of water. I've got our survival kit in there. I've got our Zeus. In the winter, I've got snowshoes. I've got a shovel. I've got toe straps. It's just...
What kit do you keep in your car?
In my car, I have a 72 Pro. It's our 2-person survival kit.
Okay.
And then I've got a deck system. Yeah. And it's full of stuff, right? I've got a tent. I got blankets. I've got knives. I've got hunting stuff. If I gotta go, look, I run a survival company. I cannot be caught with my pants down. So exactly. I'm a little over prepared.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun too, because I'll be at a trailhead and somebody needs something. I'm like, here's a zip tie. Here's duct tape. Here's a first aid kit. So I have more than just the kit, but I do believe the kit is a great starting point for most people.
Thank you for answering those. I was.
How'd I do?
You did good.
I think you're an expert, so you tell me if I passed.
You did good. I mean, no, I think we're tracking the same stuff. I just think, I think the problem is exactly what you said: the apathy and the people not being. This can never happen to me. And great if it never happens to you.
Yes.
But woe to you if it does and you're not prepared.
Well,
and especially if you're responsible for other people. If you're a husband, a father, or if you're responsible for other people, that's not okay.
Or just be a helper.
Yeah.
My buddy Craig lives in Bozeman, Montana, and last year when it was super cold out there, He sent me like 6 or 7 pictures. He's like, dude, I've just been driving around starting people's vehicles with your Zeus today. It's fun.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so cool, right? Like you just made 6 or 7 people's days better at the least.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a bigger thing that could have happened, right?
Sure.
People always ask us like, oh, what's the cool life and death story with your company? And I always tell them, and this is the truth, we don't get a lot of life or death because our products are designed to nip a situation early. It doesn't get to that point.
Right.
If your battery's dead and you're in the middle of nowhere and there's no cell service and it takes you 30 seconds to start your vehicle and drive off, that was a minor inconvenience.
Right.
Versus if you can't do that and you got to hike 10 miles and it's dark and who knows what happens. So anyway, yeah, I just want to make a bunch of helpers in this world that can make it a better place, right?
Yeah.
More guys like you.
That's amazing. I mean, that's why it's like you said, there's a lot of things you could be doing that choose to do this company as something that's bigger than yourself. And I definitely appreciate that. And thankful we're going to get to do some work together.
Heck yeah, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, being resilient means being ready, and being ready means being prepared. And if you're prepared, you're going to be resilient no matter what comes your way.
For sure.
And I wanted to give you guys, I really thought this would be an amazing opportunity. Take an episode, introduce you guys to Christian and Uncharted. I would encourage everyone to go to the website, educate yourself, see what kind of products you have that could help you to be prepared and be resilient for whatever situation you might find yourself in. And they can reach out through the website.
Yeah.
Any questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll always answer everything. Find us online and we're here for you to help however we can.
Yep. And they're on Instagram as well. We'll have all the Uncharted links in the captions below. Before we hop off, if you don't know, every guest here gets a Smith & Wesson firearm. So,
Are you serious?
Yeah, so you can look behind you. You're not going to walk out with it today because the security would tackle you. But you could pick a firearm that Smith & Wesson has.
It right now?
No, you don't have to pick it right now. But you could.
I want to ask
could.
some questions.
People might want to know what you pick, but I'll give you some recommendations.
Pretty zombie ready, huh?
So if I had to pick one, I would pick the Stealth. You get it in 357, 44 Magnum, 45 Colt, and it's got the Picatinny rail. You got M-LOK system on the bottom, so you can put optics. And we're gonna throw on. You tell me if you want a red dot or a scope. We'll put on a Vortex optic going at courtesy of Vortex, and then we'll make sure we'll protect your eyes with some Gators eyewear, which we were down at Gators earlier, and then into some other stuff. Bio Pro is a product that we partner with. I love it. It's a all natural HGH alternative.
Oh, cool.
And it's super great for a lot of things. For me, mostly, I brag about it all the time. I sleep. So it's really solid. So make sure to get your sample of that. And also want to thank Allied Wealth Management as well for sponsoring the show. All our sponsors love our guests and want to take care of them. So I'm
going to do some shopping, man.
Yeah.
That might be the one, though. I like
go with that
That's
one.
Cool.
Yep, Smith & Wesson Stealth. Thanks so much for listening. And Christian, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Again, go check him out. If you hadn't yet, like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you next week. Stay resilient. Hey guys, thank you for watching this episode of The Resilient Show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you hadn't already, please click subscribe so you don't miss any future content. We have so many amazing guests scheduled and you don't want to miss it.